Roy, that song, Pretty Woman, in the publicity we've read about you on previous tours, it indicates that you sort of dashed that song off in a moment of quick inspiration. Was it really like that?
Yes, it was. My wife was leaving the house, and I asked her, did she need any money? And my co-writer said, a pretty woman never needs any money. And he said, would that make a good song title? And I said, no, but Pretty Woman would. And in about 30 minutes, by the time she came back, the song was finished.
And sold, what, 4 million copies?
About 7 now.
7 million copies now. Have you had any other moments of inspiration as lucrative as that?
Running Scared came very quickly. That took about 10 minutes. And, well, all the really successful ones came fairly easy. And the ones that weren't successes took a long time.
Let's go back to the early days. We also read that it was Pat Boone who more or less persuaded you to give up college and take up singing as a full-time career. Is that a legend, or is there something behind that?
Well, we were both at the same school at North Texas, and Pat was recording and had appearing on television. And so I said, why am I not doing that myself? And so the following year, I moved to a junior college. And then I started doing television. I had 2 network shows, and started making records and recording. So I just saw someone else doing what I wanted to do.
Roy, how long was it then from the time that Pat spoke to you that you had real success? I know you were on the Sun record label for the early years, weren't you?
Yes, I joined Sun Records in '56, just as Presley left, and Carl Perkins and Johnny Cash and Jerry Lee Lewis and myself, and quite a few others were in that era. And minor success. And then in '58, the Everlys recorded Claudette, which sold a couple of million. Jerry Lee Lewis did Down the Line, and it sold about 1 million. So that made enough money for me to move from Texas to Nashville. And then in '59, I had a record called Uptown, which almost made it. And then the following record was Only the Lonely. And then it was good from then on.
How did the idea Only the Lonely come? Because that was really the one we first heard you in New Zealand singing.
It was more or less by mistake. We wrote a song called Cry, and there was one. So we changed the title to Why. And then there was one of those. And we changed the title so much that finally we came up with Only the Lonely. And someone said Frank Sinatra's just released an album called Only the Lonely. And I said, I don't care. That's the way it's going to stand. So we had changed it so much that it was sort of a mistake, but a good one.
Well, we're talking about those early rock and roll days. In the last 2 or 3 years, with movies like American Graffiti and groups like Sha Na Na, we've seen a comeback. Why do you think rock and roll is such in vogue again?
I think maybe that people now get to evaluate things much more quickly. Like some of the master composers and painters, it took 100 years or 50 years for them to become popular. And now with television and radio and everything, it can take only 10 years maybe for people to realize that there was more than just passing fad, and maybe there was some good material back then.
But you've managed to sort of maintain your popularity all through the Beatles and psychedelic music, everything. Why do you think this is?
Well, I'm not a follower. I kind of sort of do my own thing, and when that coincides with what the public wants, then everything's good.
I remember once we saw a movie here, kind of a western with a guitar that fired bullets, the fastest guitar alive. Have you decided to leave movies aside? Was that just a once-off?
Well, it was meant to be the first of 7 films. And then the film company folded. I don't know whether that was on account of my movie or not. But they sold off real estate and things, and then now they're in the movie leasing business. I did do some title songs for a few films, Zabriskie Point and Moonshine War, and a few others. And then I've had offers to do films in the last couple of years, but I stay booked ahead for about a year, and I couldn't take the time off. I already was contracted to do the personal appearances, so I'm not altogether away from it. It just, I'll have to wait till the right time.
Roy, if we could just end up by looking at your style, I think your trademark is the soaring build-up sound. How did you hit upon that as your format?
That was a mistake as well.
Another one?
Yes. We wrote the song Running Scared, and when I got to the end of the song, the producer of the record said he couldn't hear me. And I was a little bit embarrassed by that, because there were 30 musicians around. And so I said, well, let's try it one more time, and you will hear me this time. And so we took it the second time, and then I sang louder than all the 30 musicians. And it sounded great, so I guess it was not knowing what limitations were that I had. Being innocent of what the range was. If you know it's real high, you can't hit it, but if you don't know it, then you can sing way on up there.
So we'll be running scared in Christchurch tonight. Thank you, Roy.
Oh, yes.